Hello, everybody. I thought I'd start a quick impromptu stream about some, relatively fun Critical Role news, as well as things having to do with D&D. D&D just had Eberron drop on D&D Beyond, so people should have access to that if they had already purchased it, I believe. There's some fun things going on. There's a really cool Critical Role update for Fireside Chat with Liam O'Brien on top of everything else. So I'm just getting the stream up and running, and we'll just jump into everything. So make sure everything's working properly. Just need to make a few more adjustments, and we'll just go ahead and jump in. Second. That's a little weird. Yeah, so I got some interesting, some very interesting insights from Liam about his character and how, kind of that process has been for him and Critical Role. We're also going to be talking about Eberron and that recent drop. So, two very different news items all in one stream. So, it'll be interesting. You have to press so many buttons when you start a stream. Sounds clear, but very low. Why this is the default, I'll never understand. There we go. Yeah, it's my entire computer setup likes to reset every single time I do a stream. So, unscheduled live stream, but I thought we'd just kind of hop into a couple of things. We're talking about some Critical Role news, we're talking about some Eberron news, and we're going to probably show off the book a little bit, because actually I really like the Eberron book. I think it has fantastic art. It is very much a 2024 kind of update for Eberron, so primarily what we're seeing new in the new Eberron book is one new subclass in the form of the cartographer artificer. So that's kind of the big headline. Obviously, we have species updates to make them more in line with 2024, as well as the entire artificer class. But these are largely minor tweaks to kind of bring them in line with the new books. I'm going to go ahead and start with the Critical Role news, unless anyone's opposed in chat right now. I know we have 36 viewers, which is, hey, honestly, more than I thought I'd have on a random stream in the middle of the afternoon. Yeah, I do. So I'll go over some insights for Eberron, and for those that don't know that are currently in the stream, Eberron is very much a steampunk kind of pulp. Pulp fiction isn't the word. Just pulpy stories. Like Indiana Jones is very much pulp fiction, right? Eberron's got a little bit of everything. It's primarily kind of associated with steampunk, with magic that kind of has like gears and stuff like that, but it also has like the fallout of a devastating war. There's an entire area that's been completely destroyed under mysterious means. There's warforged, which are made out of metal and wood. And no one would hate you for calling them robots, though they do have, self-awareness and all that other stuff. There are dinosaurs. There's even basically cowboys with wands. So Everyone's got a lot going on in it, but primarily it's kind of known as a steampunk universe. It was originally created in D&D via a contest. It was a contest to create a new setting within D&D, and the person who won that contest was Keith Baker. And this was thoroughly filled out by the rest of the people who work there, people like Chris Perkins and James White and stuff like that, with guidance from Keith Baker at the same time. Keith Baker still makes third-party content around the world of Eberron as well. So, So that's what Eberron is. So a couple of my insights in here that don't break any type of NDAs of any kind. I think the new art style is gorgeous, and probably my favorite art that I've seen come out of Eberron in this particular little tiny book. And I'm not being disparaging. It's just a smaller book. It's a little bit more bite-sized. I absolutely love the art. I've always loved the Warforged, and they're always good reflavor species for any of you wanting to play a construct. Warforged kind of hit that need for you in that sense. If you're a Critical Role fan and you're a fan of the Mighty Nine, I mean, imagine Hooperduke with all the gnomes and everything being mechanical and stuff like that. There are even giant Colossus Warforged and things of that nature. So you have your average size Warforged, and then you have your giant sized Warforged. And that book just came out. Let's go ahead and take a look at it real quick, and then we're going to jump into some Critical Role news. We may bounce around depending on what people want in chat right now. So if ads aren't running or anything like that, please let me know, because that's always terrifying. So let's see. Oh no, where did I put it? Well, this may be real interesting. No. Perfect. Camera sideshow. There we go. Doing it live. So this is Eberron, the Forge of the Artificer. I don't want to spoil the book for anyone or give away too much information. It's important that people make money off the work that they do. I'm not going to go bit by bit through the entire book in a way that is easy to capture or anything like that. It's just how it is. But this is the type of artwork I'm really excited for. I love this initial cover for Eberron. I love this kind of example of a Warforged basically being worked on. I think this is really evocative. I think it's really cool. And when we started first seeing the artwork coming from the art team for this book and the layout, it was absolutely gorgeous. So I'm really excited for this book, and big congratulations to the D&D design team and the D&D art teams for making this. I don't know. Oh, interesting question in chat. If you're a premium YouTube user, do you get to see the same amount of money? I don't actually know. I do know that I still get money even if you're using YouTube Premium to avoid ads. I know I make income off of that. So don't feel guilty or bad about that in any way, shape, or form. So if you're not seeing an ad and you've got premium, that's totally normal. I'll double check the stream real quick. Yikes. I almost make the whole thing go away. That's good to know. Everything seems to be on. Yeah, seems to be working. As far as I can tell. Oh, one big shout out to Hero Forge. They've been a huge sponsor of the channel since day one. They do have a Black Friday sale. I'm in love with their dice, where you can actually put your character and parts of your character in the individual dice. But they've got 20% off sale right now for all color dice, or any type of minis that you print out. And then you have 50% off of their digital files as well. So I definitely check that out. That's a huge deal. 20% off is, I'm sorely tempted. I'd be more tempted if I was not unemployed, but but like 20% off is pretty solid. Like that's pretty huge. And now I'm weirdly obsessed with the dice and trying to think of cool themes to do with Hero Forge right now with their dice, because I always like to have crow or raven themed characters. So I like the idea of having a whole bunch of dice printed out that have ravens in all of my dice. Or I also like the idea of taking a character, taking them to pieces, and having a Frankenstein character with each of his limbs is inside one of the dice. But I'm weird that way. So yeah, let's take care. Anyways, the link to Hero Forge should be in chat somewhere, as well as Streamlabs. Yeah, perfect. Okay, glad that's working out for everybody. Thanks for hopping on the stream. So we're just kind of taking a look at this. Now we've got multiple books that have actually come out. There's the kind of the history of and a lot of people might actually forget the history of Eberron in 5th edition, but we initially had a digital book that came out. I don't believe it was called, was it called The Last War? I'll have to take a look at it, but it was a digital only release of Eberron. And then about a year or two later, we came out with an actual physical book that had a lot more content. And this book primarily is meant to not necessarily replace all of that lore that you already maybe do have in 2024, 2025, these new core rule books. This is primarily kind of like an update to the alchemist, the armorer, the artillerist, the battlesmith, and then you get the new subclass for the cartographer. You get a couple new spells, and then we have a whole bunch of Dragon Mark um, backgrounds that are associated with several of the Dragon Mark feats. We're not going to go through all those because that's crazy. But we're getting the Changeling updates to the Changeling, the Kalishtar, the Korovar, which I don't think we had before. The Shifter and the Warforged. My only complaint with the Shifter all the time is you don't have like a flight version of the Shifter. I think everyone kind of wants that. I don't know why that's a line in the sand necessarily, but we are getting new bastions as well. So if you're a fan of the bastion system, you got plenty of that included. Yeah, as Wayfinder, thank you, the Wayfinder's Guide. I appreciate that. So this is what we're getting. It's a nice little overview, and like I said, not bite-sized, but a little bit smaller. We haven't seen major changes, and I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm just running through. The good changes that we have, and we saw this in Unearthed Arcana, which is a big deal for those who are Eberron fans, is, well, primarily I've always liked the concept of alchemists and the elixirs. Now that, it's only a bonus action to administer or drink a potion, it made sense that the elixirs also are treated this way. Because they're called elixirs, technically this would have been like a rules as written issue, right? Because they're not called potions, they're called elixirs. They don't function the same in name alone. But at least they mentioned it in this, that it's just a bonus action. Before, I'm going to be honest, the alchemist was a little bit unusable. So my my wife played an alchemist. Having to take a full action to drink a potion or drink an elixir was just kind of maddening. So I had strong feelings about that. We're still getting healing, swiftness, resilience, boldness, flight. Flight's a banger. That's all good. But mostly we're seeing kind of the same resistances. Now you do have the ability to cast Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron, so we are getting references to spells that are relatively new. Here and there where they make sense. Obviously, it's really cool that they get raised dead. I think that's pretty awesome as well. So, good quality of life improvements for those who are fans of Eberron. The armor has never needed anything other than it's always been one of my favorites. I played an armor as well for an extended amount of time, and they are fantastic tanks. They're one of the best tanks. They were probably the best tank until the Path of the World Tree Barbarian is probably the best tank in the game right now, but that's just my knee-jerk reaction. You're just getting constant temporary hit points for you and your friends as a Barbarian World Tree. However, the armor is up to some nasty business, and always has been, and I believe they've got a new armor setting as well. So, Magic Missile, Thunder Wave, Mirror Image, Shatter, Hypnotic Pattern, Lightning Bolt, Fire Shield is new, Greater Invisibility, Pass Wall, and Wall of Force. This is just a great selection of spells, even though you are a limited caster, of course. This is still really, really solid. You've got your arcane armor. You can don and doff it by using the utilize action. And you've got a new armor model. So Guardian was always really strong. You had this Thunder Pulse. You do thunder damage. And then I believe I think this is the clincher for thunder damage. Any creature hit by this pulse wave with your Guardian model of this armor, you have three different versions of your armor. It's Dreadnought, Guardian, and Infiltrator. I'm skipping the Guardian because it's really cool, because you punch someone with thunder damage, just knock them, and they would have disadvantage to attack anyone other than you. And this was just a clutch thing to do in any encounter, but you must expect that you're going to get the absolute crap kicked out of you all the time when you're doing this. You also have a defensive field. However, now it's when you are bloodied, you can take a bonus action to gain temporary hit points equal to your Artificer level. You lose these temporary hit points if you doff the armor. I think that might be a little bit weaker. I'll have to take a look. I don't remember there being... we didn't really have the bloodied condition previously on this, so that might have been a nerf of some kind. I could be wrong. Dreadnought's really, really, really fun. Force Demolisher, you have basically a giant arcane wrecking ball that does 1d10 force damage. If you hit a creature that's one size smaller than you, you can push the creature up to 10 feet straight away from you, or pull them 10 feet towards you. This is an important kind of stipulation because you have giant stature as well. As a bonus action, you can transform in your armor into a larger form of your armor for 1 minute, granting you an increased range of 5 feet, which is crazy. Your effective size becomes large, and you can do this a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier. So this is kind of like, it's always going to be on. So if you want to push a bunch of guys around the battlefield, this is a fantastic example. You got a little bit of a scorpion ability for Mortal Kombat. The type of potions they can make are really called elixirs, to your question. So, and I'll just jump back real quick. You still have healing, you have swiftness that increases your speed by 10 feet. This goes up as you level up, though, and so that's really nice. So before, these experimental elixirs didn't necessarily scale, but the healing gradually increases. The swiftness that your potion can cause will increase. You can layer these effects eventually. Resilience goes up. Boldness, resilience gives you better armor class. Boldness goes up after a series of artificer levels, and so does your flight. So what's nice is the alchemist is probably most improved out of this entire list. Because your elixirs did not scale as you leveled up, they do so now, and that's a really big deal. So super excited for all that for the alchemist. It's important. This is really important stuff. So, like I said, quality of life improvements. I think it's totally worth it. Armor is nasty as the Dreadnought. Is the Dreadnought as powerful as, say, the Guardian? Maybe not in terms of, like, utility, but... Oh, it's a huge buff to the Alchemist. Trust me, as someone who watched their own wife play an Alchemist, from the 2014 version, you eventually... I mean, you just kind of give up on it, right? Because it's so hard to not have a bonus action and then have these elixirs not scale. Was really difficult, and now that's been fixed. Then we got the Infiltrator version of the armor. We got Lightning Launcher as well. Extremely long range on this thing. And your speed increases by 5 feet, and you've got advantage on stealth checks. It's really hard not to play where you want to play as an armorer. You've got stealth armor. You've got Dreadnought armor, which is like basically being a Hulkbuster, and then on top of that, you've got this new... I mean, you've got the original Guardian, which is super strong. You're a great tank for the party. I think I still believe it's my favorite Artificer in the entire game. I'd be hard-pressed not to play an Armorer again. I had a great time, especially because we were in a game with Jasmine Bolaire called Silver and Steel, and the number of times I ended up in some giant monster's mouth, and the party had to basically save me as I kind of took all the attacks upon myself, were constant and unending. It's hilarious. I love being a tank so much. And James Wheeler, not James Wheeler, but James Wheeler was my former editor at D&D. I don't know what. James Wyatt, as he always point out, he brought up a very important part, and James Wyatt is a massive contributor to everything that Eberron is, and is not often spoken of enough. But James Wyatt mentioned, the nice thing about being a tank for your D&D group is that you really have two turns. You have the turn that you can attack, and then you have the turn where you get attacked. And it's, though it is altruistic being a tank, the spotlight does get shown on you twice every turn. So, yeah, the Halandil advice stuff I'll go into really quick pretty soon. It's just a little bit of fun backstory, and it's not what I call really massive breaking news, but I can go ahead and dive into it for everyone very quickly. So, for those who've been watching Campaign 4 of Critical Role, I just want to bring up, we got some interesting tidbits from Liam O'Brien about Halandil Fang and how he chose the character, and even how Sam chose his character. For all of Critical Role's campaigns, Liam is often given Sam the advice of what character he should play, and Sam has taken it every single time except for this time. This is the one time where Sam decided to pave his own path. Liam mentioned that he was always kind of interested in playing a bard, but he felt that Sam had played a bard so well in Campaign 1 that it just didn't make sense for him to revisit that. He also mentioned the fact that he cannot sing, and Marisha also feels like they can't sing, and everyone else in the cast can sing. I can tell you the entire cast can sing very, very well. I have witnessed the karaoke. I cannot sing at all. So yeah, pretty rough. But what he did mention that was really interesting about Halandil Fang was his previous, how many conversations he had with Brennan Mulligan about the character. The fact that he didn't want this to be a dramatic or dark character, like he has played a lot of dark characters, and he didn't want to have a dark, gritty character this time around. He did want to finally play a bard, and he wanted to think about theater a lot, and that's the reason he chose this bard. He also had insights into the theater that his character runs and campaign for, in that this is a theater that is a magical theater. So if you had a theater today in this magical world, you would have illusions. You would have Mask of Many Faces. You would have, all these kind of pyrotechnics, possibly due to magic. So when you say theater, don't think in terms of the modern day theater, but something that is far more extravagant and magical, and that's his kind of sense. Liam did have extensive conversations with Aabria about their characters' relationships, about the kids, but one interesting thing that came up is that Liam didn't want to have a big dark backstory, but then of course his brother ends up dying, spoiler alert, in the very first episode, so he has a dark story. Whether or not he wanted it, he did mention he didn't have a secondary character idea until the game started. And once he did, he mentioned the secondary character idea in case his character died to Brennan, and Brennan loved it. Quote unquote, loved it. And that he was a little concerned that Maya put Halandil Fang on the chopping block for Brennan, because Brennan was so interested in this other character concept that Liam had come up with. It's a dangerous thing to bring these things up to your dungeon master, because I tell you, they will sit in my brain and spin around for a long, long time, or for a short time. And I can only kind of theorize as to what that character concept was, other than maybe one of his sons. Maybe, his brother Thiazi Fang dies, and then Halandil Fang, his main character, dies, and then he plays one of his own sons or daughters in this same family as his as his secondary character. And that's the kind of insight we got. You should definitely, if you're a really massive Critical Role fan, I think Beacon's really worth it. You got those fireside chats. It's really fun. So that's kind of a brief breakdown of kind of the interesting insights that Liam had to his character and why he chose him. I totally get not playing a bard after Sam played a bard for so long and did it so well. And I've always liked the idea of a more theatrical bard or a more eloquent bard. And we have the eloquence bard as a subclass. Liam also refused to give up what his subclass was. He told people he will have to wait to find out what that is. I'd be hard-pressed to believe that it is anything other than the College of Tragedy, which shows up in Critical Role materials as well. And that's kind of the brief breakdown there. So we got the artillerist. I have a kind of a weird history with the artillerist. Actually, also my wife does. So a lot of this looks the same. Thunderwave is a banger. Shield's really good. Fireball, Wind Wall, Ice Storm, Wall of Fire. The art is fantastic. I love it. And I love the feeling of Artificers. You do get this Eldritch Cannon. The Eldritch Cannon does, I believe, scale a bit. You can also basically cause it to explode. But let's see if they've improved some things. So you do have a Flamethrower, 15-foot cone. They take 2d8 fire damage, everything being warm. Ballista, 120 feet is nothing to scoff at, 2d8 force damage. You got Protector mode where you get 10 HP. Arcane Firearm. Arcane Firearm adds a d8 to one of your spell damage rolls, to the number rolled. Then at level 9 you get Explosive Cannon. That means these little walking cannons that you own can kind of just explode. And that's about it. Fortified Position, double firepower. This is where your damage kind of scales on this stuff. Shimmering Field Projection provides half cover. I don't think enough people use half cover in their games sometimes. So I think that's a pretty big deal. You can now have 2 cannons at the same time. Yeah. So here's my thing, and I'm just going to briefly mention it. So my wife did play an artillerist, and this gets into theming, and sometimes it's kind of a problem that we all have in our own heads, is we want something to be official, and we're not comfortable with skinning things. I am 100% just as guilty about this as anyone else out there. I get stuck in my head. I can't do anything else other than what is written out thematically. But when I was seeing kind of the damage output that the artillerist was doing, and I guess maybe it's, a little bit of the message on the tin, being an artillerist, is why not play an evocation wizard with a gun? And that's what Megan ended up doing. She played her character named Whittle. She played a gnome that had a large rifle and was just an evocation wizard, and this worked out perfectly for like 3 years. It was perfectly on theme. She was able to cast fireballs and lightning bolts and why can't I talk? Disintegration rays out of her cannon. And all these other spells like Magic Missile, and it was just on theme. She just had her spell focus be a giant steampunky cannon, and it was the best. It was great. I think I saw a video years and years ago where someone themed a evocation wizard as an archer. I mean, that's got to be the most powerful archer, as you want to describe it. So don't be afraid to move towards themes, but the artillerist isn't going to ever get anywhere near towards damage output as an evocation wizard. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, even with that increased 1d8 to a spell you cast, which is handy for like things like Fireball for sure, but if you really want to lay down crazy damage, it's evocation or wild magic sorcery sometimes, because you can actually sneak in an extra action every turn as a wild magic sorcerer with the right roll, but that's got to be a whole different math video I'll do for you later. Battlesmith is that kind of mechanical pet class. You got Heroism, Shield, Shining Smite, Warding Bond. I love Warding Bond. It's my favorite thing. Again, I love being a tank. Aura, Purity, Fire Shield, Banishing Smite, and Cure Wounds. Did the armor have Warding Bond? I don't think so. I think that's my only kind of complainty thing I have. Yeah, I love having 10 hit points and also being to drop Warding Bond. So it's a good selection of spells, and I will say this, I feel like all of them get a good selection of spells in this game. So Heroism's okay, Shield's important, Fire Shield's definitely making the rounds, and getting a smite here and there, Mass Cure Wounds. Looking at the Steel Defender in the combat can take its action and reaction. This is all typical stuff that we were seeing, restoring, and the defender scales with you, still has its rend ability, extra attack, destructive, force damage, restoration energy can come from it. So you can be a pretty good support class as this, obviously. So that's really fun, but nothing major I'm seeing right now. Yeah, I mean, deflect attack is huge. That's nice, but let's get to the cartographer, and this is the kind of teleporting, and I don't think the cartographer is necessarily going to be out the Feywild, the Archfey Warlock for teleportation. If you love teleporting, Archfey Warlock is the big winner in D&D right now. So it's just about theme. So you can basically scribe a map. You have a bunch of spells like Fairy Fire, makes sense. You are the person in the chair. You are aware of everything on the battlefield. So Fairy Fire, Guiding Bolt, Healing Word, Locate Object, Mind Spike, Call Lightning, Clairvoyance, Banishment, Locate Creature, Scrying, Teleportation Circle. This all makes sense. Totally on theme. Really well designed. You get an extra 1d4 to awareness rolls. So you have mapped out everything around you in a sense. You are hyper aware of your environment. So, I'm seeing in chat, so the new Frankenstein one didn't make the cut. I can't speak to that other than the fact that maybe that's not meant for Eberron. So, Whenever you see anything from UA pop in and then it just doesn't show up in the next product, that doesn't mean that it's dead. It just depends on what the feedback was. And Jeremy Crawford has spoken at length about this. If something's like a 70%, then it can be improved. If it's lower than 70%, then it's probably dead. I don't remember publicly what they said about what the impressions were. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Frankenstein later on. That seems like a solid concept that people like, even though I feel like Necromancer fulfills that in a lot of different ways as well. But again, that's you choosing to be a wizard or an artificer. So that's on whoever wants to play something in a very specific way. We got positioning, which is really cool. Target knows the location of all other map holders on the same plane of existence as itself, which is pretty huge. The map holder can target another map holder regardless of sight or cover, so long as the map holder is still within the effect's range. That doesn't mean that they can cast a spell on you from like 120 miles away, but it is nice that you don't need to have line of sight on them, so it's pretty nice. I would argue that artificers are better rangers and rogues than rangers and rogues are, because of just the magical weapons that they can actually produce themselves. When you look at all the bow and sleight of hand related magical objects, and also magical objects related to stealth, an artificer can kind of outclass potentially rangers and rogues for a lot of what you expect in a game. So they're good spies. So that is something to keep in mind. Illuminated, cartography, you can do fairy fire. You got portal jump here, which means you can spend an amount of movement to basically teleport to an occupied space you can see within 10 feet of you, or within 5 feet of a creature that also has a map. It's a weird limitation. Guided precision. Once per turn, when you cast a spell from your cartographer spell list on a creature that is affected by fairy fire with an attack roll, you can add your intelligence modifier to the damage roll. Interesting and specific. Ingenious movement. You can use your flash of genius on you or a willing creature of your choice you can see within 30 feet of yourself, and you can teleport 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see as part of that same reaction. That's pretty nice. And then we've got Safe Haven. If someone who has one of your maps, goes down to 0 hit points, they're not killed outright, the creature can destroy its map. This creature's hit points instead change to a number equal to the artificer's level. An erring path, you can cast Find the Path without expending a spell slot or any of the components that you need. Still not as strong as a teleporter as the Archfey Warlock, so if you care about teleporting and that's all you care about, not necessarily situational awareness for your party, Archfey Warlock is still the best teleporter right now in the game. So that's the deal, folks. And then we got the Homunculus. That's the spell you get. But much improved in many ways. I really like the cartographer. I think you are very specific if you enjoy that type of thing. I think the armorer is still a banger. I think artillerist is just kind of strong wording for a class that will never be as powerful as the evocation wizard. And if you're playing an artificer, you should not necessarily expect to be as powerful as a wizard, unless something is very situational that has occurred with your magical items that you've chosen or that you've acquired throughout the party. It's just one of those things. So, or a sorcerer right now. Sorcerers, I would argue, are stronger than wizards. I think it's actually an easy argument to make at this point. Sorcerers are much more powerful in the new game. What I won't do is go through all the feats, but look at this art. I love it. I love the art style for this entire book. I really want to get my hands on the special edition version of it. But we've got all the dragon marks. I've looked through them. They mostly work exactly as they did before. And I'm glad that they included a new subclass. I want D&D to continue to experiment and try new subclasses. So yeah, like if you don't think cartographer is necessarily on theme, that's totally understandable. But I do want D&D to keep on reiterating and testing new things out. And we've got the aberrant mark here and all that stuff. We've got the backgrounds for each of the houses, aberrant heir, archaeologist. We've got the house agent, house of Canth. I'm not going to go through all these. It's a ton. If you love the world of Eberron, you will be properly served with backgrounds specific to the type of house that you enjoy in Eberron. And there are a lot of houses in Eberron. As you can see, as I'm scrolling by, each of them are different. A lot of them grant you different spell effects and different spells that you can cast because they give you very specific feats having to do with that. We've got the Changeling here, which I've always thought was a banger and should, probably not in core. I think Changeling works for any world ever. I love playing Changelings. I think they're super fun. Also great assassins, so just keep that in mind. Changeling traits, they're shapeshifters. None of that has changed. The Kalishtar are in here now, and that's you having kind of a, I don't know if you play the video game Control, but you have this kind of other spirit that you're mind linked to. You can cast the Dream spell, which is nice. We've got the Koravar, which I may be butchering because I never have to say their name. They have a lot of Fey gifts. We've got Shifter, which I really wish we had a version of the Shifter that allowed us to actually fly. And I don't think... Nope, we don't. So we've got a Long-Tooth Beast Hind. We got every type of Shifter but a Shifter that can fly, and I do kind of feel like we had that. Warforged are a classic. I do still wish we had a different generic construct class within D&D that was part of core, kind of like the Clanks in Daggerheart, but that's just me. Otherwise, you can just keep on reskinning Warforged for everything that you want out of that. And then we have just a ridiculous amount of feats specific to Eberron. You're probably going to find your players constantly wanting to dive into this because almost all these feats give them a ton of spells within Eberron. I mean, level 1, just the Mark of Healing spells alone. False Life, Healing Word, Arcane Vigor, Prayer of Healing, Aura of Vitality, Mass Healing Word, Aura of Life, Aura of Purity, Greater Restoration. That's handing folks a ton of spells to work with a feat. That's very specific to the world of Eberron. Most Dungeon Masters I know would not allow you to grab a feat out of here otherwise. Yeah, same thing here. Not seeing massive changes. Just checking. Spellsmith, we also cast... Yeah, you can only get these extra spells if you actually have the spell casting or Pact Magic class feature. So this is pretty cool for Warlocks. You got some wild combinations. I mean, getting Conjure Barrage as a sorcerer is interesting. You're starting to get into like Ranger territory and all kinds of stuff. So you're definitely it's definitely a different game from regular D&D. As I said, I'm not going to go through all of these because it's a ton. Wow, yeah, Mark of Shadow has always been a banger. Disguise Self, Silent Image, Darkness, Pass Without Trace, Clairvoyance, Major Image, Greater Invisibility, Hallucinatory, Terrain, Mislead. That's a wild set of spells. So specific. Yeah, I've been in a lot of games, and I have never had a dungeon master let me use any of these marks outside of Eberron, and that's understandable because they are so extremely different. We've got a bunch of general feats as well, but we've seen some of these. But this is a lot of feats. This is lots of feats. Yeah, Marco Warding was something I was always interested in because I was able to. Oh, did Marco Warding change? I might be confusing that with the house. So, that's kind of the overview. I actually quite like this weird graphic here, Bastions in Korovar. I just kind of feel like it's on theme for Eberron personally, but everyone's got a different opinion. But I think the artwork is really fantastic. And then we get tons of new bastions: Dragonmark Outpost, Gundark Vault, Navigator Helm, Orion Helm, Artificer Forge, all this other stuff. It's quite a lot. You're getting a lot of cool, very world-specific bastions, and I hope we see more of that, especially if we continue to move to different worlds. I think this will all be fun to include. So I don't want to spoil too much from it, other than you're getting some good stuff. You're getting story prompts. You're getting monsters. You're getting a bunch of cool art, underboss stats, a bunch of other stuff, and then you're getting breakdowns of kind of all the locations here in the game as well. So go ahead and move myself back to the main camera. So yeah, I think it's a really nice update, especially if you're already an existing Eberron fan. I think it's a really fun update. So I recommend it. Yeah, it's got kind of a very 1940s noir pulpy feel. I like those bigger swings when it comes to art. As long as they're consistent. When did I not like art in D&D? Let's see. Second edition Ravenloft, there was some art I really, really did not like. Felt very cartoony and strange to me. It was just not my taste. I don't know if a lot of you remember it. I can't even begin to describe it. It just wasn't my vibe. And some people felt about the one of the monster manuals, and I think that artist is brilliant. I just didn't necessarily want all art to be from the exact same artist every time. But that's the guy who did like Planescape back in the day, and I think he's brilliant. You don't necessarily want an entire book of just one artist drawing every single monster in D&D. That's pretty wild and also exhausting. So, but it's kind of, I'm excited for the book. I've been flying around a whole bunch, so I even forgot the book was coming out, if you can believe that. But I think it's interesting, the Halandil Fang stuff. If you haven't been watching Critical Role, the reason it stuck out in my brain, and I wanted to do a video about it and do a brief live stream about kind of the news of the day. Maybe I'll start doing a live stream about the news of the day. Not every day, I don't think, but I think certainly I'll have to come up with a name with it so people understand like why the live stream is actually happening. If you tell your dungeon master your secondary character idea and it's better than the one you're working on, you are marked for death. So be careful. It doesn't mean that's what's going to happen to Halandil Fang, to Liam's character. Could be inevitable though. Or not. Who knows? It's interesting he didn't want to play a character. And he also, Liam brought up an interesting concept, which I've thought about quite a lot myself, was not wanting to be an adventurer. That Halandil Fang... why was the book delayed? Oh, yeah, they've already spoken about that. The book was delayed because they... felt that there was a production issue from the printer itself, and that's why they delayed the book. They actually were very transparent. They had an article post about that, so they delayed releasing the book. They wanted to make sure the book quality was up to what everyone's expectations are. This is something that can happen in print all the time, and it's best to kind of get ahead of that kind of stuff rather than let it ride. So they did the right thing in delaying. I'd rather always delay a book, please. Or a video game. Let people delay video games. The number of video games I've seen that could have been great that were not delayed and then were terrible, it's just too numerous to count. It's really too bad. You have to give good things time to be made. And that is my advice to everybody else. But my other advice is, don't tell Dungeon Masters your better character idea, or, someone like Brennan Mulligan may kill your character in the future. I don't know. But anyway, I do like Halandil. I like that concept of a character that does not want to be an adventurer. Like, Liam's character does not want to be an adventurer. I think this is always a fun concept. I always thought it'd be fun to play a Battlemaster fighter who just is like a logger, right? Or a forester. and then they get sucked into an adventure, and they just happen to be really, really good with an axe or something crazy like that, right? I think Rangers find that well. Also, the concept of like you're just a forester, like you're not necessarily marked for adventure or for shenanigans. The spell casting kind of makes it so you are though, and it makes you kind of unique. I think it's very easy to take fighters and bards and make them not characters that necessarily want to become magical. Warforged Battlemaster Logger. That's pretty cool, actually. I love that. That's pretty awesome. That's a winner. If you have any questions or anything you want to talk about, you can go ahead and do a super chat. We've got gifts, and YouTube has a lot of weird new things. So be sure to check out all of those. Yeah, I'm really optimistic. I'm not going to talk about the Ranger, but I do really like the Arcane Archer, and I feel like the Arcane Archer is the magical archer that everyone kind of wants. I really like the updates in Unearthed Arcana. I don't review PDFs. I'll have to think about that. I typically don't review other people's PDF materials and stuff like that, but I get the inclination, and it doesn't necessarily mean I am a critic. I'm not criticizing Eberron. These are just my vibes. But I think the Arcane Archer, there was a recent UA that showed the Arcane Archer, and I thought it was really, really, really fun. And really on brand with kind of what you want out of the magical archer trope. And I feel like that's something you could always have an expansion for different arrow shots and stuff. It's not that I don't like Rangers. I just like the idea of I don't consider Rangers to be magical in the same sense that I think an Arcane Archer is. I want an Eldritch Knight version of an Archer, and I think the Arcane Archer, it's just that scratch. But don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. I know every YouTuber says it. We all mean it. This all matters for the algorithm. This all helps our video content get out there and reach people. I'm doing a lot of theory crafting kind of based off Critical Role and seeing their characters. I think there's a lot of really good examples of great moments. I'm going to probably make a top 10 video of like things that you can learn from Campaign 4, frankly, and character growth. Great things like, Brennan Lee Mulligan as a Dungeon Master. It's an important lesson for every Dungeon Master. Don't make characters that everyone hates. You must make a world where some people are actually likable and you want to defend them and realize the world is a better place. We've seen like really cool examples of like really good dungeon mastering and role playing and use of mechanics, right? Frankly. Hey, do we have anything official for next year offerings from Wizards of the Coast? I haven't heard or seen anything. Neither have I. Looking at chat. Any critical breakdowns? Yeah, I'm not gonna. So I'm gonna avoid any kind of reviews or critical breakdowns of anything D&D related until like we're out of the scope of anything I worked on in any capacity. So I think that's just better. And I mean, to be completely honest, I love the D&D design team. A lot of them are my friends, and I care about them, and I think they're wildly talented and far more talented than I am in this arena. And yeah, I'm really proud of the work that they did on this Eberron book. I'm really proud of a bunch of the stuff that they've been working on. Morning from New Zealand. It's good to see you. The name of the dragon scene. I haven't named him. I think Megan has a name for him, and I don't remember what the name of the dragon is, and I feel terrible. It was pretty funny. We had him on a pillar, one of these pillars behind me, and it was very difficult not to pet him every time we woke up, because he looks like such a good boy. It is pretty funny how you anthropomorphize things. so quickly. Like, you feel guilty on some instinctual level. It's like passing by your puppy and then not giving them a scratch. I hope this video was good for people. So again, there are links in chat, very specific to Hero Forge. It's a huge Friday sale. 20% off all Hero Forge physical miniatures, and then 50% off digital. I think that's pretty massive. The other thing, I love this game, and I'm not. I really honestly do. Demio Balmarked. Not enough people are talking about this game. I remember years ago, Demio came out, and we were all jealous that this game existed because it's like being around a virtual tabletop and getting to play D&D and just fight a bunch of D&D monsters. Well, now it's officially themed D&D. There's an official Dungeons and Dragons Demio Balmarked game out there. It's on Steam right now. You can play it on PlayStation 5 and 4, I believe. I'm not sure about the 4 part. Check out that game. It is so fun. I'm going to start streaming it. Just assuming that doesn't hurt my YouTube algorithm and all that stuff, because you never know with YouTube these days. You have homework. Next time you stream, you need to tell us the name of the dragon. I'll keep that in mind. Did the Patreon have a Discord? I can't find the link. I'm working on the Discord actually right now, and I need to get that finished this weekend. So I'm behind on a bunch of things for the Patreon. That's completely on me. I've been traveling, and I've been a little physically exhausted, and I honestly I think I need to find some people to help me out with some of this stuff. I was recently in Los Angeles doing interviews specifically about Daggerheart. There is some crazy cool stuff coming out from Daggerheart. They announced a new book called Hope and Fear. And my impressions, honestly, with Daggerheart recently have become, I think everyone's been hearing how good of a system it is. I don't think they fully are hearing the mechanical side of that story, which means class and subclass breakdowns. I think we sorely need those. Even if they don't get a ton of views necessarily, I think we need class and subclass breakdowns where we really get into the math the math rocks of each of those things. And I also think we need to take deep dives into the monsters and the campaign frames for all of Daggerheart, because they got some absolutely wild, freaking wild monsters, and some amazingly wild monsters coming up next year. And I want to do deep dives into all of that because it's great. I think a rising tide lifts all ships. And I'm glad that Daggerheart is doing so well. I think that will inevitably make D&D do well. Let's see, I'm catching up on chat. I could totally see the Soldier's Table. Sorry, my Streamlabs is making it hard for me to read chat. I can totally see the Soldier's Table making Cass becoming a good person, and then making this fiefdom base. Oh, Casimir? Sorry. Kashmir. Base of operations in Assassin's Creed 2 style within an economy. I could totally see that as well. Oh, I moved my... That's so wild that it moves my camera when I do that. That's the weirdest. Streamlabs is so weird sometimes. I want to start Balmarked, but got stuck on the zoom part of the tutorial. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm not quite sure on that. I've not had any issue with the zoom. If I need hand editing, I will let you know. It's more of a question of how much I'm making a month, right? Like, I'm not making enough a month to have employees. I'm just trying to pay my half of the rent right now. It's still terrifying, but I really appreciate that. I admit that I got baited into backing Drakenheim, and then hearing about the new book from Daggerheart. I like them both, but dang. I don't know if that's baiting. I think it's just, no. But, you know, my thing with Daggerheart is that, I don't think anyone knew how well it was going to do. And that's what's happening. And I think we're going to see effects of that moving forward. For maybe years to come I think there's a lot of confidence in Daggerheart. But then, and I think they thought Daggerheart was going to do well. I don't know that anyone knew it was going to do that well, and that quickly, and would sell out that much. So I think we're seeing a lot of third-party creators thinking, what else can we do Daggerheart related? So I'm happy for them to... Anyone to port the world into Daggerheart, I think is great. You don't have a scroll wheel, Cassius? Yeah, I don't see Casimir ever turning the other cheek. I'm sorry, that dude seems like he has no worth. Brennan's gonna have to have a hell of a monologue to explain why we should give a shit about Casimir as a person. I don't disagree. You got trackpad. Oh man, I used to rock a trackpad. I don't do it anymore. I used to like trackpads more than mice, and I had to get away from it. Wow, a lot of trackpads out there. Yeah, I just couldn't. I wasn't good at first-person shooters with a trackpad. You'll do amazing, Todd. You've always been successful. Yeah, I really appreciate that. It's hard to have that mental state, to be completely honest. So, right now, I'm just kind of getting by. And, every day you come out with a video, and then maybe that video doesn't do well, and you don't know why. Like, I have an interview with Deborah on Wall about dungeon mastering advice. That video should have just been a banger today, and it's doing okay. But, you are the mercy of this crazy algorithm. I almost feel like I should be live streaming more than I am making these edited interviews sometimes. It's just hard to tell. Like, covering Critical Role and stuff has been really fantastic, and Daggerheart, and I've gotten a lot of attention, a lot more attention than I thought I would by doing that. But when you come to think about it, I've been covering Critical Role for 8 years. I'm about to start running a game for my wife that's Daggerheart related, and she's going to be playing a witch fungrel, which I think will be really fun. So I am learning the system. Let's playing, I think I'm going to start using to get into a Daggerheart game and really learn the game. I want obsessively know Daggerheart forwards and backwards to the point where I can actually tell someone, I'm like, I know more than you about this. It's like when I learned 5th edition D&D, I must have made 100 characters just so I knew the rules backwards and forwards. And then, of course, running a 5th edition game for a 3-year campaign every single Wednesday definitely makes you learn a game. And you still make mistakes. I do, yeah. The community has been incredibly kind. It's hard to take that. Keep the nice comments coming. I always appreciate that, and I appreciate everyone's support on Patreon and everyone's support here with the super chats. Maybe I'm looking at maybe we make merch. I want to make sure everyone's getting something out of the support they send, because I am not in the position to be supporting other creators anymore. I had to turn off all my stuff, like Twitch, all that stuff. Look at the subscriptions I have for video services, and you have to get slim. Thank you so much for the super chat. It really helped. Will you live stream a Daggerheart game? I am thinking of live streaming a Daggerheart game, but it's thinking about the cast, and I think we have a lot of live stream shows where there are mistakes in casting. I think it's really important for everyone to be friends, or for them just to have inherent chemistry. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And you can throw as much money at it as you want. It's not going to work. I recently saw a live play show that didn't get any views, and then they threw an ad spend on it, and that doesn't translate to success. It just looks like success. So just because you jump from 90,000 views after multiple weeks of being out, and then you put a Google AdSense ad on it to get views, you can look at the comments and you don't see the right ratio of what's happening there. You're not really reaching audiences. You're just reaching random people. I've seen people like that try to promote their Facebook pages by having an ad spend behind it, and it just doesn't work, man. If something's successful, it's successful. It's really hard. You can't put an ad spend on I can't think. Men in Black 2. I didn't like Men in Black 2. How about that? I'm trying to think of an example of a movie I don't like it wouldn't matter. Sadly, YouTube algorithm is not a good metric for whether... Yeah, I know, and actually, who tells me this all the time is Ginny D. Ginny D is very good about, hey, YouTube's very good at making you feel bad about yourself. So, sometimes things just go wrong. Yeah, I really want to do Daggerheart, and I think Daggerheart is incredibly accessible, and I think they've got a lot of cool things they can do, and they can iterate in an incredibly fast way. I think the card system for Daggerheart is something that I'm most in love with. I think that is such a great thing for players, just to be handed a card for each of their keystone abilities, and I kind of want to break down the crazy, maybe this is a video by itself, a live stream eventually. The fact that we get locked into, so I love the Archfey Warlock patron subclass. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's perfection. I love teleporting. I love trickery. But you see, as a Warlock, you have these keystone abilities. That's great. As a subclass, you have these other kind of keystone abilities that you are locked into from the day you make that choice. When it comes to the cards in the system of Daggerheart, is just because your path is, okay, I'm playing a Syndicate Rogue. You've got Grace. Grace is like the charisma class, right? You've got connections, all that stuff. And then you've got Midnight, which is kind of the very dishonored, teleporting around, using darkness subclass. You have multiple abilities you can choose from. You're not locked into one set of progression. So the cards are very clever in that sense. So for Daggerheart, your assassin is not like anyone else's assassin necessarily. You have so many permutations that you have a higher likelihood of finding the career path, the class path for your character than you do with a lot of systems in role-playing games. I would love to numerically break that down for people so they fully understand that. Oh, wow, huge $20 super chat. Thank you, DM Jimmy. Just thank you for things you've done throughout the years and your continual support. You're supporting me, man. That's very kind. That's pretty funny. I don't know that anything I've ever done has been support. I just, I really love interviewing people about the things they love, and I really, I don't think everyone has gotten the opportunity for that. Certainly when I started covering D&D and Critical Role, I don't think enough people, they were barely being interviewed by their own company, their own people at that time. Certainly people knew of Chris and everybody, but getting them interviewed on a weekly basis, I really want people to know who these people were as people, and not just designers, but this is why I loved D3 at the time. I was at NBC News. I started covering video games. I never wanted to be a reporter a day in my life, but I really, really liked the idea of covering video games. And I literally had someone come up to me like, "Hey, you're a nerd. Why don't you? And you're a photographer. Why don't you go shoot packs?" And I did. And I shot. They asked for 3 stories, and I came back with 44. I shot for 3 days straight, 12 hours a day. I jumped from booth to booth, interviewing everyone I can get, and they about interviewed 10. They're like, "How do you still have more videos coming out?" And then I told them why I had done, but then we started making a ton of money at NBC because the video game coverage at NBCnews.com was some of the most profitable original content they had. So they actually built me a game studio with 2 of every game console, including gaming PCs, and then we had a studio for shooting in. And I had my own show on NBCnews.com about video games. It was a wild time. But I couldn't cover D&D. D&D was too nerdy for them. So it's a very long, weird career I've had. But the great thing about developers is you can see the passion that they have for what they do. And the same is true of like cosplayers and a bunch of other people. Is you interview these people and you see the happiness in their face, and then you understand. Even if you don't understand the game, you understand that someone cares about this much. And there's a context to that when you watch live play shows. You see something like Critical Role and you understand why this is important. And doubly so, I would argue, for live shows. So if I'm ever retreading on something, and again, big shout out to both Mark T7177 for the super chat, and thank you to DM Jimmy for the super chat. That's absolutely huge. Something that's really important is getting that kind of what am I thinking of? I didn't understand. You could not understand. Oh, League of Legends, perfect thing. I was not playing League of Legends myself, but I went to cover League of Legends as a reporter, and being able to see people react live in a theater to League of Legends being played, I rapidly understood what was happening. The context of the crowd screaming or having different emotional reactions to what was happening on the screen allowed me, and certainly I play a lot of video games, allowed me to like connect the dots as to exactly what was happening and who was doing it. So when you watch a live play show, like the Baldur's Gate 3 ones I did Baldur's Gate 3 at Gen Con with Brennan, Mulligan, and Aabria, and Sam Bayart and Neil Newbon, and then at MCM London, I did that game with Jerry Crawford as the Dungeon Master, and the cast of Baldur's Gate 3, and then MagicCon as well. These all got tons of views, and were easy to understand because you have a crowd roaring and yelling, and you kind of, even if you don't understand D&D, you understand D&D. So, Todd, do you have a chance to explain with hype? Oh, I don't. I don't understand how to explain what... I'm not even sure how hype functions on YouTube. I know there's hype on... I know there's hype on Twitch. Thank you so much, by the way. Dana Lu Huzul, thank you for saying I'm your favorite D&D interviewer. I would love to see a series of D4 and deep dive Colby-style videos explaining Daggerheart through... That's what I've been thinking about doing, actually. Or finding a partner to do it with me as well. Todd, any chance you can explain what hype is on YouTube? YouTube has all these other infrastructures for like helping out streams, and I need to learn this because they've got, first off, there's subs. Like someone the other day, it was wild. They may be in chat right now. They gifted 50 subs to the channel to everyone who was in chat, kind of like you do with Twitch, which is wild. But there's like badges. Oh, okay, hype is a weird mobile thing. Understood. All right, so there's badges, there's stickers, there's subs, there's gifts, there's all that stuff. Because YouTube's really trying to kind of keep the monetizations. I mean, it's good to have both, right? There's Patreon, and then there's whatever YouTube's got going on as well. I've never done a GoFundMe because I'm not secure enough for that right now, I guess. I don't know. GoFundMe scare me. Though certainly, like, if I needed to get new gear, I'd definitely consider a GoFundMe. Yeah, and Twitch's traffic is dwindling pretty rapidly. I get more people on my live stream significantly than my Twitch channel ever did. And I don't think that, and technically I'm a former Twitch employee. I don't see a lot of income coming from Twitch. I'll stream here, and obviously I have a lot more subs here, But, like, thank God, when I got laid off, I still had my old YouTube channel. Yeah, coffee, that's something to consider as well, especially when people want to do a one-off. Yeah, that's something I should consider as well. I'm just really, it's hard to do the crowdfunding thing, because you want to make sure everyone's getting something out of it. And, yeah, it makes you a little bit nervous. But I hope that was a nice breakdown of the Eberron book and some of my thoughts on Halandil Fang as well for all you critters. It's a little weird to like mix news stories, but I know there's a lot of kind of there's weird shows I watch, like The Break Room, which is the same people who do the New Rockstars channel, and they just kind of talk about movies and TV stuff and things like that. I'm also a huge fan of The Real Rejects. I really enjoy that channel as well. Real hard to discover new streams in Twitch, man. And also, the live play audience is virtually gone on Twitch. So strange. I just feel like video traffic on Twitch in general has just dwindled. I thought about doing an interview show using Demio Battlemarked, actually, where we just play D&D and I interview folks on Battlemarked. Because I think it's too distracting to like run people on a D&D game and then ask them questions about their lives. So, but that might be just me. Well, I think we had a good stream. It's been, I really appreciate the 110 people we have here. I don't want to like overstay my welcome by any means. I always wonder what that barrier is of when you start deciding, okay, let's stream a little bit less. Like, when do you think it's been enough? I'm checking something. Because I see folks streaming all day long. And they've got a whole writing staff. Is Acquisitions Incorporate Daggerheart coming to YouTube? I assume so, but I don't have inside knowledge onto that. So I know that Acquisitions Incorporate Daggerheart is on Beacon at the moment. And I know that Critical Role has their own stuff on Beacon for a set amount of time. So this is me just purely conjecture. This is not me knowing anything other than that. It makes sense for it to eventually be on YouTube. You'd listen to me stream for hours? That's very kind for someone that has a... I think my speech impediment is a little bit better than it used to be. What was that? Sorry, I just heard a really weird noise. Not to spook anybody out. What is going on outside my house? Oh, it's just my neighbor. Good God. We've got the loudest neighbor. Just so you know. Perfect. Super nice people. Sometimes we hear noises and it's just them taking the garbage out. And but it just it comes off sounding so weird. So the question is there going to be a pre-recorded Critical Role 4 episode for Thanksgiving? I don't believe so, but they haven't really talked about that, have they? I don't think you lost sound. You just heard me stop talking. Yeah, I watch, because I do reaction videos, so, I think most everyone here knows, I do reaction videos. Well, I do a pre-show every single week to Critical Role before a episode airs, and then I do a reaction video the next day to every episode that airs. That pre-show is increasingly getting more and more popular, actually, because it's a nice warm-up for everybody, so I think I'll definitely keep doing both. And I really like doing it, and Frankly, Critical Role. I didn't have the ability to cover Critical Role in the intensity and vigor that I wanted to while I was at a different company. I'll put it that way. So certainly I would interview Matt once in a while, especially when I was at D&D Beyond. That was very common. That became a little less common later on. Todd Kenrick, I wonder if Critical Role are doing an actual play on December 10th. They didn't. Oh, they did the last charity auction. I don't know. I wish I was more informed. Campaign 4 is great to get into right now. And then watch the Mighty Nine. Watch Vox Machina. Mighty Nine, Vox Machina, two very different shows. I have seen all of the Mighty Nine, all 8 episodes. I did interview the entire cast about the show, and wow, what a beautiful show. And it's kind of funny. You get spoiled by how good it looks. It's really weird. I don't know how to explain that. I'm used to Critical Role being so successful, and you forget how hard everyone works, and then you see the animation behind the Mighty Nine, and you're just like, holy shit, if this was any other brand, I would be like, I would have this kind of oh shit moment for how good the art was, but like, because they're people I know, there's some kind of weird, I'm like, oh yeah, of course it's great. I think my expectations are now so high that they're ridiculous. I'm not fully absorbing how well something's getting done. Does that make any sense at all? The color palette is really fantastic in Mighty Nine, and every location feels really different. How do you feel about Brennan, Mulligan versus Matt as DMs? I think they're two very different dungeon masters. I've had Brennan as a dungeon master before, actually, and I think he's fantastic. Brennan also has a lot of different variations on how he dungeon masters. So Brennan can do these very big, broad, crazy, hyper intense, fantastical kind of episodes, right? And then he can do something very slow and dark. I'm never going to shit on the only time I'll be shitty about Dungeon Masters if I think they're taking complete agency away from someone or railroading them. But, like, no, I think Brennan's wildly talented. He clearly has very in-depth conversations with every player. I think Maz's a fantastic Dungeon Master. I think it's just different directors, right? You have I don't even know how to describe it properly, but, like, yeah, like, you just have different film directors and you expect different things from them. Does that make sense? I wouldn't want to characterize either of them as specific directors because they have such range. Yeah, I wouldn't even say any of them are like a Christopher Nolan, right? Like, no one's expecting a comedy out of Christopher Nolan. So, but yeah, check out Mighty Nine. It's absolutely gorgeous. And check out that sweet Black Friday sale for Hero Forge. It's short, man. It ends December 1st. So, Brendan's got a real knack for asking seemingly innocuous questions that really make someone think about their character. Yes, he does that. I've seen that multiple times. I think that Brendan actually bringing up. Yeah, Steven Spielberg versus George Lucas. I can see stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think we have a lot of like weird one-to-one director comparisons that match as much as that. But yeah, I can see that. Yeah, so Brendan actually asked the question about like when Thimble was having the conversation with the hags. You know, spoilers alert, earmuffs. When Thimble was having the conversation about her first memory of Thiazi, that was something that, you know, Laura was not prepared for, but instantly was able to come up with something really emotional and important, and then the character lost it. Brennan has one of the best screams in the history of the world. Brennan also has the best Trump impression I've ever heard. Ever. Him as Trump as Sauron is it almost made me piss myself the first time I ever heard it. So I love Dropout TV so much. I watched Dropout TV heals all wounds. So I love both Dungeon Masters equally. I don't think I'm a terrible Dungeon Master myself. Certainly after 3, I think I've allowed myself to get a little burnt out here and there. Brennan being that little red cap, I've forgotten. I need to text Critical Role actually, or send them an email. I want them to make a hat. I'm going to make myself the hat. It's going to be a red knit cap that says, "I'm going to put my hat in you." So, yeah, his Trump Sauron is nuts. I call him Little Tomato. That is such a deep cut reference for a Lord of the Rings fan. I don't know if Brennan and I can go toe to toe on esoteric Lord of the Rings knowledge of both the films and also the books. I know he would not be able to handle the information of the books compared to my brother, who is a Lord of the Rings expert. But I had a Lord of the Rings themed wedding at the same inn as... Oh no. The creepy inn from the 80s. The soundtrack goes doom doom. Doom doom. Yeah, anyways, it's disgusting how Denethor eats cherry tomatoes. It's disgusting. It's the weirdest. If anything takes me out of Return of the King, it's how Denethor eats cherry tomatoes. It's absolutely disgusting. Not the Bates Motel, no, but close. It was a TV series. Oh my god, this is driving me nuts. Oddly enough, the Shining Hotel, the exterior is I've been to. I used to go there as a little kid. It has a different exterior than the interior of that hotel. That drive is actually the Oregon coast heading up to Mount Hood, I believe, to the Shining Hotel, which I spent a lot of time as a little kid. So I do have experience with the Shining Hotel. Salish Lodge. It's the Salish Lodge. Twin Peaks. Thank you very much. Twin Peaks. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, so we got married in a Lord of the Rings themed wedding on October 31st, Halloween, at the Twin Peaks Hotel. So if you want 3 different genres all mixed together, you get it. So Kendrick, what other companies you are in with? I was looking at some cool press stuff and hope they're doing okay, but the last couple of Kickstarters didn't drive the numbers. Yeah, I reach out once in a while for potential interviews. Right now, with my capacity, it's hard not to cover like AE, D&D, Daggerheart, and Critical Role. Certainly when people reach out, I'm totally willing to do an interview. I'm one person though, and doing the interviews and then all the business end of, well, it's not even business, but you know, it's a lot. Oh yeah, Sean Connery eating in Hunt for the October is pretty strange as well. Oh, fun fact, Laura, I shouldn't. Yeah, I figured a lot of them pop into those games. It is truly bizarre to like just be playing a video game and you're like, oh yeah, it's like Shadow of War. Like half the cast of Critical Role is in Lord of the Rings: Shadow of War. You just hear them randomly, like Liam's Gollum, which is always wild. Let's see, where are we at right now? What is the healthy length of a YouTube live stream? I have no idea. I need a Skinner the Red Cap coffee mug that reads, "I'm going to put my hat in you." I mean, why not? Why a coffee mug? Why not a red cap? He probably has a mug that says, "I'm going to put my mug in you" as well. That's probably Skinner's whole frickin' thing. That's his tagline for everything, I bet. I hope Skinner shows up again. What exactly is Daggerheart as a D&D noob? Daggerheart is, I feel like, the way people play D&D versus the rules is written. I feel like Daggerheart is very especially aligned with live play shows in improvisation. Certainly you can get some really cool crunchy numbers that throw up and stuff like that. But I think kind of the weirdness of D&D is inherently captured by how Daggerheart is designed, including the moments you have. So Daggerheart is got a lot of little mechanics in play where like you would have done this anyways, but now we're giving you a reason, and even like a little bit easier things for dungeon masters to understand, like the fear system. Like you will, as a dungeon master, bad rolls happen on your party side, and you'll start getting this resource called fear. It's a good way to let you know that coming up, there's a good time for something dramatic and terrifying to happen, and it's almost mechanically telling you when to be able to do it. It's kind of wild, right? So I think that's what Daggerheart is. I think it's an evolution of D&D in a lot of ways, but I'm not an expert in Daggerheart at all. There are really good videos from Mercer explaining how to play Daggerheart. I gotta tell you, Spencer and Rowan are two of the most brilliant game designers, and also eloquent and able to talk about what they love. I think they're very popular. I want them to be just as popular as Chris and Jeremy Crawford. They are wildly talented individuals who don't get enough credit. That's how I feel about Spencer Rowan. And by credit, I mean but the universe credit. Someone just hopped in. What did you miss? I'm dropping a new album. Telemasca, The Secret Order, Supernatural AMC show, Black Friday deal. What? Woo! I've heard mixed reactions to the Telemasca, and I've always liked Anne Rice books, and I always liked the Telemasca as The Secret Order, so I'm well on the fence. I've been hurt before. I'm a huge fan of Interview with the Vampire. It's deadly to speak to me before my coffee. Yeah, well, that makes sense. That seems like a red cap thing to do. I would definitely play a red cap in a game if someone would let me. No, sorry, Humble Kellet. No, I'm not dropping an album. Yeah, we talked about, we went over the new Eberron book, some of the subclass and class and mechanical changes that were happening, and then Halandil, Fang, kind of some of the revelations that happened with Liam O'Brien about his character. Yeah, you gotta watch those caps. So talking about Halandil, Fang, and Liam kind of mentioned the process for coming up with that character, why he waited so long to play a bard. He also talked about Liam O'Brien talked about the fact that he didn't have a secondary character in mind when they started playing the game, but he has since come up with a secondary character. And so now he's afraid that Halandil Fang might get killed by Brennan because he's come up with such a good secondary character, and Brennan seemed to really like the concept for the character. So that's kind of the situation that's happening with Halandil Fang. Also, that he didn't want to play a bard until now because he felt Sam had done such a fantastic job and felt a little bit insecure about not being one of the best singers on the Critical Role cast. And the conversations that he had and how in-depth the conversations were specifically with Aabria about their prior relationship, their kids, and stuff like that. So that's kind of the overview of what we've been talking about in chat. We highlighted some of the artwork from the new Eberron book coming out of D&D, and then we've been chatting about Daggerheart primarily just now, and how I feel about Daggerheart. So sorry, I shouldn't have answered so glibly to someone asking in chat like what I'm up to or what we've been talking about. That's not good. Sorry for the level 1 questions, but I've never played D&D. Wow. Okay. And exposure is purely Dimension 20 and Critical Role. This last month, how would I start playing as someone with nobody I know being into it? You do have local game stores, and I can kind of find that to be really scary. Yeah, well, at this point, we're just chatting. So my advice is, there are local game stores where you can learn D&D. I've never learned D&D that way. I had other friends who played D&D, and I learned it that way. Start Playing is a good resource if you have the money. The Start Playing link in here gives you $10 off your very first game, and you can find a game, the setting you want. You can look at reviews for Dungeon Masters and try out a game that way, and you will slowly learn, and people will be there for you to help you learn. If people are not kind to you learning a D&D game or a Daggerheart game fresh and new, and don't kind of help you in that process, then you're in the wrong group. It's really scary. I was a very shy kid. I learned D&D from my brother initially, and then frankly, I just started running it in like 3rd grade for people I barely knew, right, socially. And so I got better at it. And that's just kind of how it progressed. So Start Playing is probably kind of like the one-stop shop for learning new tabletop games. But aside from that, trying to find a hobby store to learn in as well. I hope that was a good answer. I know it's the primary. It's the thing that always gets asked. We just don't have enough resources to teach people new tabletop games, in my opinion. I still feel like we're falling behind on this. There is a great star set for D&D that just came out that my friend Justice Armand really spearheaded. That's really fantastic and explains it very well. Daggerheart is also, I feel like, a game that is very easy to understand and kind of comes with that book comes with everything you need to know how to play D&D. I mean, Daggerheart. Small conventions also very intimidating sometimes too, though. It's hard, man. Yeah, Start Playing, like, if you got the cash, and even one episode, and honestly, that's, like I said, the link to Start Playing, that's in our chat right now, that gets you $10 off your first game. So you can find a $15 game and play a single game of D&D for $5, Yeah, I think it's hard, and so to your point about gatekeeping, it's not even gatekeeping always. I mean, it's just a scare. It can be scary, and there can be gatekeeping for sure. But like, I remember I was a little kid, and our neighbor wanted to run D&D, and I was so excited. And I gotta tell you, this guy, what a jerk! He was rude to his kids. He was rude to us. He was condescending, he was mean, and I never went back there again. And that was one of my first D&D experiences. And that is not the typical D&D experience. He was just some a-hole that happened to play D&D. And that's something you need to keep in mind. If you do have a negative experience, that's not D&D. That's someone who is using a social situation to be a jerk, which we see in everything. And those guys like that, they don't survive at hobby stores. Yeah, that's like that's someone's parent who should, like, imagine being that old and still being a child, basically, and being rude. Yeah, and the thing is, at no point did I think that was like a fault of D&D or role playing games, because I played D&D with other people before that, so I knew better. But like, if someone makes you feel that way, screw them. I did run into that with Magic the Gathering. Someone made a bad trade with me as a little kid and took a very, very expensive card off of me for like a common card, and wow, there are some really evil adults out there when it comes to greed. So I couldn't believe it, man. Because you as a kid think adults are doing their best. Not always the case. Yeah, dude. Yeah, get in the chat. Let me know what happens, man. I feel like this whole group just helped someone today. That's pretty funny. That's wild. I can see why just chatting channels do so well. There's a lot on Twitch though, aren't there? I've seen DMs use D&D as a way just to power trip. Yeah, for sure, dude. You see that in any role-playing game. I remember, you know what the worst thing is? And I've been guilty. We're all guilty of this, man. And it's a disease. Putting your own character in a D&D game. I did it. I killed off my character to prevent myself from doing it. Because sometimes as a dungeon master, you so desperately want to play in a game. But I played in the Star Wars campaign where we all switched off as being the game master, and this one dude game mastered, and it was the silliest, stupidest adventure we've ever played. His character was the main character of the whole game. We got to do nothing. He like cut a ship in half with his lightsaber. It was just the worst game. It was so boring and awful. Main character syndrome, man. Yeah. I mean, actual plays are really informative, actually, sometimes. Now, Critical Role's got, with Campaign 4 at the moment, like, you're learning a lot about the acting, but they're so very secretive about their subclasses, you don't necessarily know what's going on. We've figured out most of the subclasses at this point for the game. But being able to watch the kind of play-by-play in actual plays... If I was going to do a Dagger Art game, I'd really want it to be, really engaging, really fun, but also somehow informative, without tossing up a bunch of numbers. It's that's a GoFundMe, that's a Kickstarter project, and then you want the views. So we did Legends of the Multiverse, and that was a Zoom call D&D show I produced, and that was. We started off with 250,000, and I think we sold at 30,000 weekly. Because with a lot of live play and actual play shows, you actually see a 50% drop episode after episode until you find your baseline. So our baseline was about 30 to 40,000 views a week. So, but you gotta pay that whole cast, It's a big time commitment. Hey, yeah, hey, that's so important, man. And you know what? A table doesn't even have to be toxic. Sometimes you can just be running a game with the same amount of people every single week for too long. That's different too. It's not even a toxic situation. You just get burnt out on the situation happening every single week. I'll admit I loved my 3-year campaign, but eventually I just couldn't do it anymore. It's just I felt like the story had hit its own conclusion, and I just wanted a day off. And I think Dungeon Masters also sometimes can become people's bartender or therapist. I think that happens inevitably as well sometimes, or you get blamed for stuff. Everything I'm saying sounds really negative. I love dungeon mastering and running games so much. You are able to give someone this kind of tailor-made, wonderful experience where you can make someone's day. You can fulfill wish fulfillment, create stories you will never forget about, because for some reason when you imagine a story, it actually cements itself in your memory a little bit stronger than an actual memory, which is crazy. I remember adventures I played 30 years ago. That's what's wild about D&D, games like Daggerheart, is you get these moments relatively cheap. You can't necessarily direct a film, but you can direct a live play show. You can direct a D&D game for just you and your friends. And to understand the scale of all of this is why I like it so much. Is I would get sometimes panic attacks before I'd run a live play show in front of a crowd or live streaming. But at the same time, I would run a game just for my wife, one-on-one, and I would still get a panic attack because I wanted her to have such a good time. And that's how much I cared about someone enjoying that experience. It's a weird way to describe it. I think someone tried to drop a link in chat. I think we have an automatic Streamlabs thing that shuts down chat links, so I apologize. There's always trouble with people running into a multi-session game for sure. Yeah, that's something that happens. Oh man, doors in role-playing games. Holy shit, do not get me started. I'll just open the door. I will bust through a window. I have multiple times just to stop the door debate. You gotta do it, man. You just gotta do it. Sometimes you just gotta get in that room. Doors shut games down. Holy crap. I'm triggered right now. That's why. So Critical Role brings up doors so much. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. Well, yeah, being valid. Well, I think I'm gonna pack it in. We're at a minute 41, but I think it was a good stream sesh, and maybe I'll try to start doing this on the weekly basis. I don't know how many people want to come back for that, but maybe every Tuesday and Wednesday we do a live play. I mean, a news of the day / just chatting. I would also rather fight a Trask than a frickin' door. Yeah. Because fighting a Trask isn't boring. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for the super chats. I really appreciate that. Thank you for supporting the stream. Appreciate all you. I'll see you next week. Yeah, we'll do weekly news. We'll do a weekly news show. I've had enough people ask about it, so people are really liking these chat streams. So do these chat streams happen often? My first time here, I checked to see what it was all about. So I got laid off, so this is relatively new for me. I do reaction streams to Critical Role episodes. I do pre-show streams right before the Critical Role episodes air, and then once in a while I will do a live stream when there's breaking news. It may be that we have enough news to talk about that we just have a weekly show that is at the same time every single day. I think consistency is a big deal. So if I'm always doing this at noon or 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, maybe that's a good time for everybody to jump in and just hang out and chat. This is my last story for the day, and you may have heard it before. We are near the end of the campaign. I had a vault, and I did not think about what I was doing in any way. I didn't think about what was in this vault. And one of the items was, I just listed off a bunch of random stuff, and one of them was the Scroll of Trask Summoning. I didn't think they were ever going to use this or be in a situation where they could. They eventually fought Asmodeus as the final endgame boss months and months later. My wife used the Scroll of Trask Summoning to summon a Trask and drop it on the head of Asmodeus in their final fight. This caused the Trask to get... this basically caused Asmodeus to get aggro from the Trask, and the Trask started fighting it. And then she ran away, cast time stop, ran away, let the fight happen. And happiness ensued. And we actually have art from Nikki Dawes of this event. It is wild and crazy, and check it out on her Instagram. But there's even a song about it by Jason Charles Miller. So that's one of the... I'm afraid D&D will never get that good for me ever again. And that's what you get to do as a dungeon master. And that was all my wife. My wife just being crazy, coming up with a plot, by herself. And she didn't involve herself in the rest of the combat. She felt like she did enough, so she stepped back to let everyone else do their thing. It was wild because she actually stole Asmodeus's staff, and then thought the best thing for her to do was not to engage in combat, but just to like teleport around while they beat the crap out of him, which is really good. Yes, ending for the rest of the group. You like to have such a big moment of summoning a Trask and then running away. Is actually very giving of time, right? And not necessarily necessary, but it was a very kind thing to do. So on that note, everyone have a happy Thanksgiving if I don't get to talk to you, and take care of yourselves. So, yeah. All right. Thank you. Bye.